Curiouser and curiouser, cried Alice. She was so much surprised that for a moment she quite forgot how to speak good English. Welcome to Let's Talk Early Years. Today, we're talking all things curiosity approach. In studio with me today is Dubai's favorite potty queen, Dubai's favorite early years expert, a wonderful treat for episode 10. Welcome in studio, Lisa Sherrington Boyd. Welcome in studio, my friend.
Thank you, Melanie.
What a privilege and what a treat. It's such a celebration of my podcast having you here, Lisa.
Well, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you and the information that you are getting out there and the way that you're supporting our community of educators and parents who want to improve their own parenting practice has been quite extraordinary. So I've been delighted to watch you.
It is my privilege. It is really my privilege to take the platform, Lisa, and to bring our community together. I think you and I can agree that in the world and in Dubai particularly, early years is an almost unrecognized and slowly becoming, but still very unrecognized industry, if I want to call it that. And I think when we can shine a light on our excellence and what we really do, I think we move towards just growing us as people, growing our parents, growing the world. I just want us to be better, and so if this is the platform, then I'm doing it.
But we have early years, we've got something about us that always connects us. If you put anyone who's in early years together with somebody else in the room, or we can't stop talking.
Yes, we can't.
We can't stop talking and infusing.
Yeah.
It's something about us and what we do because we're all driving to make a difference.
Yes, that's at our hearts, right?
It is.
Lisa, thank you for being here. Now, I know you personally, but everyone else doesn't. So please share with us, who is Principal Lisa?
Well, it's an interesting one because I always say to people, don't call me that, just call me Lisa. But it's a brand and it's a name that was created actually out of quite significant adversity. And I'll come back to that. But how I started my journey is I started my journey as a nanny, and I was at college, and part of my job was to set up a brand new kind of little nursery within a centre for families who were very challenged. Everybody else had gone like the nice posh route, but I really wanted to be at the heart of where the families were. And so my fascination with family work really started there. So I was a nanny and I had my own little home nursery. And then I went on to do my teaching degree, and I worked in secondary schools as an English teacher, and then went on to be a pastoral leader within a big secondary school where I was really working again with disadvantaged families. I was working on the front line as child protection, and then I went on to become a child and family officer. So I was working with Sure Start in the UK, which is where we work with families to help them to know how to get baby to feed, get baby to bed. So really basic care. And I was out in the community working with the schools to try and stop families from falling through the net. I lived and breathed my work. And then we moved to Dubai. And at first, I thought I can't find my place here because these things still really matter to me. Mm-hmm. The money part of it doesn't really matter to me. It's not what wakes me up every day. I want to help families. Yes. But there wasn't such a thing. We don't have child and family officers here. We don't have family centres. So I took up a role in a nursery as a nursery school principal, and I had a lot of work to do, got very, very involved, made a lot of changes, and then I got sick, Melanie. Really sick, which you know, and I ended up in a wheelchair, and I thought that was the end. I was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, and I just thought, I can't give up on this. I have to make a difference some way. So the government at the time had a radio station called Pearl FM, and it was for children, and we needed to get information out to the families. And I was kind of working with them loosely, doing some sort of podcast type thing before podcasts really came in. And they said, we need to get information out. So I volunteered for 6 months every day to do a radio show that was called Happy Families with Principal Lisa. But I had to have an Instagram, and they said, well, you're a principal, so Principal Lisa.
There we go.
And then I started reading stories every single week to all the children during COVID. And so that's how it came about. And my business, which is Happy Families, just evolved from that. But actually it came from a place of, I don't know what to do. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm really sick. I've had 4 surgeries on my spine. I've been in ICU. There's no future for me as an educator. So I had to go and find a future, because I couldn't run a school from a wheelchair.
Lisa, I commend you. And I want to say that I don't think many people knew the story behind the brand, behind the person, behind the persona. You know, when we see you on social media, there's this person, there's this persona. And sitting here in studio, I mean, I know you, but I would love other people just to know that you're such a real girl. You're such a, you know, and even just sharing your story here with us. I have to commend you, you know, coming from a place of adversity, that you've just turned it around and turned it into something positive, not just for yourself, but for the rest of the early years community. So thank you.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I love every day. And I loved every day in the nursery. You know, I never thought I would ever leave. But one day my leg just kind of stopped working, and nobody knew why. And then they found this cyst in the bottom of my spine, and the rest is a very, very difficult kind of time. But I was at the peak of my career at that point, and life just came along and went, something different for you.
And I want to say what you've done is like this popular word called pivoting. You just pivoted, didn't you?
I pivoted, like in the film, like the program Friends. Yeah, I pivoted. You know, and I just thought, and we were all in COVID, and I just thought, you know, I'm on autoimmune suppressant, so I'm taking, you know, an injection to suppress my immune system. How on earth am I going to go back to school in COVID? I can't. I need to be at home. So that's when I came up with Potty Queen and started potty training families all over the world, because of course I could sit there in my office and do it.
It's fantastic what you've done. But we're here to talk curiosity approach.
Yes.
Lisa, this is relatively new. I've come to hear about it, I think probably in the last 3 or 4 years from you. And I didn't realize that you were probably one of the first people in Dubai who actually researched it and brought the approach to popularity here.
Yes.
Why?
So I'm always researching. I'm currently doing a similar course in America at 4:00 in the morning twice a week. I'm always researching. But I felt, you know, I was in a setting in which, yes, we were playing and learning, but I still felt that we weren't respecting our learners, and respecting our young learners is really important to me. And I feel sometimes as adults that we don't see children as complete humans. We don't see their full personhood. We see them as very small, and we don't see how absolutely clever they are. And so we give them a plastic tea set. Now, why are we giving them a plastic tea set? That tea set doesn't even feel like a real one. It's different. The textures are all wrong. And of course, I believe that children know that. Right. They touch it, they feel it, they're not connected with it. Right. But if you give a child a real china teapot, all of a sudden, they've even got maths in that, haven't they? They've got the weight, that, you know, filling, pouring, and it feels real. It's authentic resources. So we're respecting their personhood, that little learner. So it genuinely makes me sad when I go into a classroom and I'm seeing things that treat children as if they're not bright, incredible VIP of the future, because
persons.
Yes, because I know that you believe is that children actually have an innate appreciation for beauty. Yes. They really do. Yes. And the curiosity approach, I found it through Hygge. Hygge, which you would phonetically spell Hygge, which is the Danish art of happiness. So I started with the Hygge accreditation because I wanted to look at well-being.
Right.
By searching and researching well-being and Professor Leuven's scale of well-being, that's how I fell into curiosity approach. And I was, wow, I have to have it. It's non-negotiable. It's this. I'm doing it. We're doing it. And at the time, because the curiosity approach is officially, it's accreditation. It's a pedagogical approach that you shift as a whole team.
Uh-huh.
And the whole team has to go on a journey.
Right.
You have to get everybody on the bus, and they say that in the training.
Okay.
And then they're testing you the whole time to see, can you make that criteria? Can you make that
so
criteria?
You would be accredited as a nursery setting.
Yes.
So the whole team would go for the training, and then the setting would be accredited as a curiosity accredited setting.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's one of the things that they might get wrong, because I think that's kind of unfair, because that team, are the ones doing all of the work.
Right.
So I would like to see that in that situation, all of the staff get their certificates. So
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm working with a school at the moment who I'm about to take through that accreditation. And I've already arranged that each person that gets involved is going to have a certificate that they are, as long as they come to all of the trainings and they're involved, that they have gone through that accreditation, so that they could take that to another setting and say,
yes,
I've done this work. And you know how important CPD is
Absolutely.
to us as teachers.
Absolutely. Lisa, what is the origin of the curiosity approach?
I think what they've done is they're very clever ladies. They're business women. And one of the things really interesting is if you YouTube them, you can see when they came to Dubai. They once came to Dubai, and you see them at the antique souk having a look around Dubai. So back then, there wasn't a single nursery that had the accreditation, that had finally been given the stamp. You are a nursery setting filled with awe and wonder, using our pedagogy.
Right.
So the curiosity approach blends theories, which of course is what we all do. So they didn't invent a pedagogy that was never invented before. They took the best of maybe Steiner. There's some Montessori elements in there as well. They pull on, in latter stages now, they're beginning to pull on the work of Emmy Pickler, the Hungarian childhood paediatrician.
I believe you're currently doing a training on that.
I'm currently studying to qualify in Emmy Pickler. So what's really interesting is the curiosity approach already began to see that. And it comes from that base of respecting the learner, but really seeing them as a whole being. So the curiosity approach is holistic. And I would encourage anybody to even consider, you don't have to have your school do it. You can become a curiosity approach ambassador. You can get involved in your own way and begin to have that within your setting.
So we can, as practitioners,
we absolutely
apply to the curiosity approach on Instagram or on the website as a teacher or a teaching assistant, and we could get accredited with that.
I don't know that you get the word accredited, but your time and your investment, whether that's time or money, is given a stamp and a seal of approval. And you can go on to become an ambassador with them.
With the curiosity approach. Okay.
And what I think it does is it gives a cultural shift as well in your setting, because it's also embedded within Hygge, the Danish art of happiness, which is that cozy, warm, soft, that feeling of home. I was talking to a teacher this week who's literally just arrived here, and I said, tell me about your last setting. And she started to tell me, and I could see her face light up. And I said, what was it? She's from Ireland. What was it about it? She said, I just felt at home there. It was warm and cozy. That's Hygge. And that's what the curiosity approach is trying to lead into. And the final element, which is really important, is it's also drawing from Reggio Emilia, having the environment as the third teacher. So a curiosity approach classroom is a prepared environment, a continuous provision that has had enhanced provision added in maybe in that moment or at the end of the day at school based on the learning and interests, schemas and capacities of the children that very day or that very moment. And it's like being set free as a teacher.
It's a reflective teacher, though.
Yes, it is a skillful, reflective teacher.
Yeah, one that's listening intently to what the children's interests are and then building a provision on that, extending their learning that way.
Yes, and so from a leadership perspective, it can be hard to get, not hard, but it is a task to get a team on board because it is a shift. It's a big shift. It's a big perspective. But so I'm about to take a school through that challenge now, and I've looked at the current planning and I watched the way that the teacher described the current planning and she told me what she did, and when she was doing it she looked so miserable. She really did. So I think it's about saying, hey, come on, something better, something different. We can do it, and it's going to feel different. I know it's a change. Right. But, in the moment planning really, really meets the needs of the children, and you just see a difference in the way that they're playing and learning. And it's joyful.
Yeah, and that's what we want. I said it in a previous episode. We want joy. We want to inspire joy, not only for the children, but for our practitioners and teachers as well. If they're not joyful and happy doing the work that they're doing, ultimately we've defeated the purpose.
I just had a conversation this morning with Principal Darren at BC Academy, and he really surprised me. He's a senior teacher, so he's a senior principal. He's got that suit about him. He's not nursery early years, but he immediately has understood that play is important. He said something quite extraordinary. He said, I really want to bring some of the curiosity approach in with our year ones. Yeah. I almost died from kind of heart excitement because year one goes to another level academically. And of course we can lose all those beautiful, learning moments. But he, even as a senior leader within senior education, he's already begun through talking about curiosity approach in the way that it is, has seen the benefits to weave through the rest of the school. Yeah. That's quite extraordinary.
I think like you say, Lisa, it takes a bit of a mindset shift to... If you're confined by the parameters of just your curriculum and you haven't exposed yourself or your manager hasn't exposed you to a variety of approaches, pedagogies, ways of thinking, it becomes a bit challenging when you're thrust into a setting and we say, okay, now we're going to do in the moment planning. We're going to do learning through play. Gosh, what does that look like? What am I supposed to do? Are these people just running around,
But in this week, the conversation, somebody said, but is it guided? Is it guided learning through play? I said, absolutely not. No guidance at all.
Yes, we're going to just let them be. We're going to let them play. And we're going to be those reflective practitioners.
That's it. Yeah. And, and when you see it in action, it looks like something like this, to give it in practice. Let's imagine you bring all your children into the morning session. Your class and your provision is set up as per the curiosity approach expectations, but you don't necessarily know what you're going to teach that day. But you start to read the story and you've read a book and let's say it's about going on an aeroplane or something, or it's actually about Hamda's surprise. I can remember this, reading a class story about Hamda's surprise, and I really want them to get into the fruit if you know the story. Right. But somebody pipes up and says that Daddy's gone on a plane that day and I've lost my class. And all of a sudden now everybody's interested on going on a plane. Right. And so in that moment, I decide that we're going to shift our role play area into an airport. So my TA is aware of what's happening. So she's already thought, right, okay, where can we get a phone? But we've asked the children, what does it look like in an airport? What do we know about airports? And somebody will say, well, they have machines. Great. So you put that on your whiteboard, machines. So now we've got a key word that's come in. So we all know there are machines. What could we use in the room today to make a machine? And we've gone.
Yes.
And
It's
all the time
child-led learning.
we went with it. But I know that today I really want my class, because, you know, I'm thinking about the learning objectives. I really want my class to begin to think about weight, volume within the mathematical concepts. So I will somehow weave that into what I've got. But then the next day, they're still coming in for that first play and they're still in airport mode. I'm willing to run with airport for 6 weeks if that's where that engagement is. And you use the scale of well-being to see how engaged the children still are in the topic. So I was in a classroom this morning, and there's one particular boy who took my interest, and he was, you know, sort of like this, and there was a great lesson going on, but he just wasn't feeling it. You know, it was about shapes and everything. And I thought, gosh, that boy seems rather unhappy. I wonder why he's unhappy. And I started to think about why he might be unhappy. Then I saw him a bit later on in the free play area. Oh, he was a different boy, Melanie.
Yeah.
He was a different boy, utterly focused, engaged, moving positively, moving with confidence. Now, what we should have done is taken the shapes there and met him there, really.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're talking about here, is about reflective practice.
And being led by the child's interests, and going back to your point earlier, that we respect them and respect their capability to communicate to us what they are ready to learn. Because if we are coming with our preconceived ideas, and I think many of us are, Lisa, and I think it's not for want of imposing or disrespecting the children. I don't think that is at the base of what we're doing. I think it's a lack of experience, one, trust possibly in our own capability of meeting those development milestones that are set out in the EYFS framework, the one that most schools in Dubai are working with, you know.
No, I know.
And so I think that the disconnect is there for us, that we're trying to meet those milestones. We're trying to get to, I've observed you, you're not yet able to do this, and so I'm going to include that into my planning. And so that's what I'm going to do for this week. And then I've checked it off. And then next week, I can include that in my report to your parent. And so we're trying to check the boxes, and we're trying to act and be as professional as possible and as thorough as possible in our teaching practice, you know. And I think that
But that sounds so joyless.
it is. I think it is, but I don't think that our teachers are intentionally going about it, you know, with I don't want to take joy from this, but I have my job to do,
No,
and I have to teach,
but,
and I
but
have
it's
to.
about but you know, not everybody has that choice. Not everybody has that, you know, that choice. But I did have that choice. I was in a position where I could impact practice. And so I did.
Right.
So I took the nursery through that accreditation.
Yeah.
It matched my values, and it still matches my values. And so I'm again in that fortunate position that I can take, you know, BC Academy through this and have that goal if that's, you know, if that's where we're going to go.
So what is your encouragement for managers right now, for early years leaders, Lisa? How can we transition to that place of curiosity, of inspiring awe and wonder into our settings, and communicate that to our teachers, that we want this? And like we said earlier, I want my teachers to be joyful in their approach. I want the children to live in that joy, to have that experience, to have that wonder. I don't want my teachers to feel stressed. I don't want them to feel that.
But it's not.
You know,
the thing is I love teachers. I really do.
Yeah.
I've hugged about 4 already today.
Yeah.
Okay, I really love them. They're what they're doing is extraordinary.
Yes. I
It's
agree.
extraordinary.
I
And
agree.
and you know, we can change the world as teachers. We really can.
Yes.
But we don't always have a choice, do we? So
Yeah.
it isn't really down to us. So when you said what you said, and I said, but it doesn't sound very joyful, that's not your fault, my fault. Somehow it's about culturally and about society and the way that we perceive milestones. I'm thinking of a video that I saw recently in which Magda Gerber, who is an incredible thought leader, so managers, leaders, teachers research her work, and she's watching a baby of about, let's say, 18 months moving around freely. Magda Gerber's about freedom of movement in the under twos, and the interviewer says to her, well, how old is the baby? And she shrugs and she says, does it matter?
Oh,
Does it matter?
profound.
Because she believed very much in the stage and not the age.
Yes.
And we want that, don't we?
Yes.
But somehow we've got to meet criteria and criteria and milestones. And
Right.
we know that so many thought leaders, and you think about Gabor Mate, and the things that he's been saying recently about the way that relationships count most.
Yes. Maslow
and-
before Bloom.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And that those basic needs to be met. So, I would encourage anybody that really cares about this stuff to join that movement, educate, read as much as you can, expand your knowledge so that you're filled with passion and conviction to go to your owners of your setting. Because, of course, here in Dubai, we're all, that there is that element that we all answer to somebody, and take that message, take that story. This is what I believe in. This is what I want to do. And tell KHDA, tell the world, go on Instagram, share your practice, and just keep trying to do what we can to really respect. And when I'm saying it's not about disrespect, it's about the respect of very small children, to see them as whole, wonderful little beings that we can grow and support, rather than that vessel in which we
Need to pour into.
Yes. And I think that's at the core of what all teachers want, Melanie. I know that we're both here. We wish it. We want all of those things. But a teacher's job isn't easy. So keep going. I think that's my message.
Absolutely. Lisa, I hear you saying to our audience today that one thing is professional development is the key to inspiring. It's not about the community you serve so much as it is about me, you as the individual, as the educator. You have to inspire your own practice. You have to go out there and buy the book. You have to be the one that leads your classroom with joy. I think we really need to take that on board as managers, as teachers, as teaching assistants, that the responsibility, the evolution, the renaissance of education lies with me as the individual. I can't look around me and say, oh, but the setting, no, I think very many managers, and I've met so many of them, are waiting for that spark. We're waiting for those teachers who come and say, I've discovered this approach. I've got this curiosity accreditation, or I'm an ambassador for X, Y, or Z, and I'd like to implement this in my classroom. I don't think that any of us would turn away and say, no, this is the way we do it. This is, I think we're really waiting for those educators to bring that spark, and for all of us to work together to make early years excellent.
And just, let it begin with me. Let it begin with just for today. We set the tone in our classroom. We set the tone in our school. So let it begin with me. Today I will be filled with joy and wonder. And I will try and share that in my classroom.
Lisa, the curiosity approach really, really focuses on beauty and beautiful environments. I'm thinking of your beautiful kitchen dresser with your porcelain cups. In the classroom, what would that look like on a practical level?
Yeah, so I've just taken over in a situation at Brighton College where I've got all of these empty classrooms ready to be turned into something.
Something beautiful.
Yeah, something beautiful, and so I'm in that. I'm looking at resources. I think carefully about each resource. Less is more. Sometimes I'm seeing, because I go around to a lot of nurseries and I see the beginnings of the curiosity approach, the inspired of it, and sometimes there's quite a lot. I see, and I'd like to strip back a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'd like us to think, maybe, well, I'm going to be thinking that every single resource matters. What is it in that resource, that item that I want my child to learn? So on my shelf, I'm going to have 3 of the nicest jugs that I can. Now, if that is a plastic one, then that's fine. If that's what we've got, maybe tie a ribbon around it, whatever, something. But we've really thought about every item counting, and just that moment of when that child picks up that item, they're learning, they're processing. If you observe a child, the way that they pick something up, watch what they do.
Yeah.
And I want you to think, how can I make just that moment the best that it can be? So cut back on having more,
Yeah.
go back to less.
And purposeful.
People get a bit confused between what's a provocation and what's an invitation, but really it's about, have I set up my classroom today so that one child will look in the door and run in and have no idea where to go first? Okay, but not so that we've changed it, like we went into their house overnight and redid their kitchen, because I mean that would be quite stressful. So we must keep our continuous provision but our enhanced provision, it's got some awe and wonder. So even if you can't do your whole room, that's curiosity approach, maybe you just do your home corner and you start there.
Yeah.
And maybe you just introduce the reflective practice. And that you can do autonomously as a teacher.
I love that. Lisa, last words.
Oh my goodness! Oh, what can we say? How can possibly have the last words? Oh, I just want to encourage teachers everywhere to aim high and thank them for everything that they do. And thank our parents for sharing their little people with us. It takes a big risk, isn't it, from a parent to go, I love you so much and I'm going to hand you to somebody else. What we do is so important.
Yes, absolutely. It has been a wonderful pleasure. I know it's been the same for the listeners on the podcast. Lisa, it's my privilege. It's my privilege to know you personally and to call you friend. You're such an inspiration. I say this to you all the time. When I grow up one day, I'm going to be just like you. Just like you. You're such an inspiration. Coming from a place of adversity, of so many challenges, Lisa, you've just taken it by the reins and you've just run with it. And at every time I speak to you, you're changing, you're learning, you're growing, you're studying, and that is an inspiration, not just as a woman, but as an educator. That for me is something that resonates, I think, with every leader, is that we're constantly learning. And for me, it is my privilege to know you. So thank you.
Oh, well, it's my privilege to know you. I'm loving your work, Melanie.
Lisa, it has been my incredible privilege to have you sit across me. Your knowledge, your experience, and your wisdom has been completely confounding, and I'm so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. At the heart of every incredible educator is the desire to respect and reverence each child's individual learning journey and growth. I believe that the curiosity approach clearly embodies those values. If you have enjoyed our episode, your comments are going to be so valued. Please share them with us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And before we close out today, I would like to extend a huge thank you to you for the past 10 episodes of Season 1 of the Let's Talk Early Years podcast. It has been a phenomenal journey of growth and creating community around our shared knowledge and experiences. So, to each one of you, I thank you. Thank you, and see you in season 2. It is going to be even better than season 1. This is Let's Talk Early Years.